Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, and I never thought I'd be sharing this, but here goes everything. The moment I stepped through the door, I saw the champagne flute slip from her hand. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. The DJ kept playing that awful synth-pop remix in the background. People were still laughing, lights flashing, but for a brief, perfect second, her entire world just stopped. Because I walked into her party with a woman she didn't believe was real. And maybe I wasn't supposed to do it. Maybe I should have just let her live in the fantasy where she thought she had me cornered, that I'd always be the one staying quiet, staying loyal, staying the fool. But not tonight. I didn't walk in like someone seeking revenge. I wasn't even angry anymore. That stage had passed. What came after the betrayal wasn't fire. It was frost. Cold, quiet, weightless clarity. You don't scream at the avalanche. You just step out of the way and let it bury what it will. You're probably wondering how we got here, how I became the man whose wife's jaw dropped in front of her boss, her coworkers, and the guy she thought I didn't know about. So, let me rewind exactly 42 days. 42 days ago, I came home to find a yellow envelope sitting on the kitchen table. No note, no explanation. Just my name written in her handwriting, slanted and sharp. Inside was a list, not a letter, not a goodbye, a list. The top of the page said, "Things we need to fix if this is going to work." I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I just stood there reading it while my pasta boiled over. Item number 4 said, "You're too predictable." Item number 7, "You make people uncomfortable at social events." Item number 11, "You still dress like someone's divorced uncle." And that was it. No mention of love. No acknowledgement of effort. No signature. Just a list of reasons I wasn't enough for the woman I thought I was building a life with. I didn't bring it up that night. I didn't say anything at all. I went to bed beside her like a ghost. But something shifted in me. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It was strategy. For the first time in years, I stopped asking, "How do I fix this?" and started asking, "What exactly am I trying to fix?" That list wasn't meant to repair anything. It was a warning. But I didn't warn her back. I simply made a plan. And 42 days later, I walked into that party, her party, with someone who didn't just light up the room. She rewrote it, and my wife, she froze. But that's only the beginning. You want to know who the woman beside me was? She wasn't a model. She wasn't an actress. She wasn't even mine, not in the way Marcy had once been. Her name was Fallon. I met her in the quietest, most unexpected place. A late-night laundromat 2 blocks from my office, where I went one evening because the washing machine at home suddenly broke. Or maybe I just needed a reason to not be home. She had a book in one hand and mismatched socks in the other. I remember thinking how rare it was to see someone completely present, not glued to a phone, not rushing to be somewhere else. She noticed I kept staring at the washer like it might explode. She laughed and asked if it was my first time doing laundry unsupervised. That was the first time in months someone actually made me laugh. We started talking. Just about nothing, really. Books, coffee, the fact that folding fitted sheets is a lie we tell ourselves. It was innocent, I swear. But when she asked if I wanted to grab a coffee as a reward for surviving Spin Cycle, I said yes. That coffee turned into a few more over the next couple weeks. It stayed platonic. But every time I met her, I started recognizing pieces of myself I thought were gone. I wasn't flirting. I wasn't planning anything. I just felt seen. I never mentioned Marcy. Fallon never asked. Then came the moment that changed everything. She saw me scrolling through photos of my wife's work event from last year, and she said casually, "You don't look like you're in that picture." I was literally standing next to Marcy in the photo, but she was right. I didn't look like I belonged there. That's when Fallon leaned in and said something I'll never forget. "If you ever want to walk into a room and change the story instead of shrinking into it, let me know. You've got more power than you think. You're just too polite to use it." I laughed it off, but that line stuck with me. So when Marcy invited me to her upcoming office party out of guilt or formality, or maybe just to control the narrative, I didn't hesitate. I said yes. Then I asked Fallon something bold. Would she come with me? Not as a date, not as a statement, just as a mirror, to remind me who I was before I became background noise in my own life. And Fallon, she didn't even blink. She said, "Send me the dress code. I'll be the earthquake, and she was. When we walked into that room, Fallon didn't cling to me. She didn't pose. She just moved like someone who belonged anywhere she stood. People turned. Some stared. One guy dropped his shrimp skewer onto his shoe. And Marcy? She froze. But what Fallon said to her next, that's where things really started to unravel. Marcy's expression twisted into something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't panic. It wasn't confusion. It was a strange cocktail of dread and disbelief, like someone watching their past mistakes morph into a living, breathing consequence. She didn't move at first, just stared, frozen mid-sip, as if any sudden motion might make Fallon disappear. But Fallon didn't disappear. She drifted through the crowd like a calm ripple in a chaotic pool, pausing at the bar to order a club soda. No panic, no arrogance, just presence. She didn't look at Marcy, not at first. She let the silence do the work. I kept my distance, which felt ironic, considering this was my wife's party. But I wanted to see what Marcy would do without me shielding her. Fallon leaned against the marble bar, sipping slowly, until Marcy finally found the nerve to approach her. I couldn't hear everything, just fragments carried over the music. Marcy asked, "Do I know you?" Fallon turned and with the softest smirk said, "No. But I know who you pretend to be." That line hit her like a slap. Marcy blinked rapidly, then tried to laugh it off, as if Fallon were some bitter ex or random gossip. But Fallon's eyes never wavered. She didn't raise her voice or stir drama. She simply leaned in, close enough that Marcy stiffened, and whispered something I wasn't supposed to hear. He read the list. All of it, I saw it, clear as day. The flicker of fear behind Marcy's eyes. Not fear of exposure, fear of being figured out. She knew exactly what Fallon meant. That yellow list, the one she never thought I'd take seriously, the one that was supposed to break me, item after item that told me I was boring, unworthy, and forgettable. She probably laughed about it with him, the one she never confirmed existed but never denied either. But now, standing face to face with a woman who radiated the opposite of everything she'd written down, Marcy finally realized she had lost control of the script. Fallon didn't give her time to recover. She simply added, "I won't embarrass you, but if I were you, I'd stop pretending your husband doesn't see you clearly now." And just like that, she walked away, leaving Marcy alone, blinking at nothing, holding a drink she'd forgotten how to swallow. The party didn't stop, but for Marcy, the mask had cracked. She looked around for me, but I didn't come to save her this time. I slipped out to the rooftop terrace to breathe. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I needed space to feel everything without her eyes watching. The city lights stretched for miles. It was oddly quiet up there, like the party below didn't exist. I stared at the skyline, wondering how I'd gotten here, not just to this building, but to this version of myself. I used to be the guy who'd quietly carry her purse and pretend not to notice when she laughed harder at someone else's joke. Now I was the guy whose silence made her sweat. The heavy glass door clicked open behind me. I didn't turn around. I could tell it was her by the hesitation in her steps. Marcy wasn't used to approaching me like this, cautiously, quietly. She always assumed I'd be the one to chase. This time, I let the silence grow uncomfortable. "Lowell," she said finally, voice soft, almost rehearsed. "Can we talk?" I turned slowly, making sure my face didn't give away too much. Her eyes darted across my features, searching for familiarity. A weakness, maybe. But she didn't find the man she was used to. Not tonight. "You didn't tell me you were bringing someone," she said. I smiled. "You didn't ask." She looked down, as if she expected that answer, but hoped I'd fold anyway. "Who is she?" I raised an eyebrow. "Why does it matter?" "That's not fair," she said. "You know it matters." I wanted to laugh. Fair? That word had left our marriage months ago, maybe years. But instead of exploding, I just let her talk. That's what rattled her the most. She stepped closer, eyes a little glassy now. "Oh, Lowell, I know things haven't been perfect lately. I've been distant. And maybe I've taken you for granted. But this..." She gestured vaguely toward the building, the party, maybe Fallon, maybe everything. "This feels like something else." It was the closest thing to an admission I'd ever heard from her. But it still wasn't the truth, so I asked her, "What would you have done if I hadn't come tonight?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. That was my answer. I stepped past her, heading back toward the door, and before I could push it open, she said something I didn't expect. You weren't supposed to change. I froze. That was it. That was the line that shattered the last illusion I had about her. She never wanted a partner. She wanted a placeholder, someone predictable, quiet, stable, someone who wouldn't challenge her, wouldn't reflect back her own shortcomings, someone who'd never walk into a room and make her feel small. But now that person was gone, and all she could do was chase the echo. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was upset, but because something about her words kept looping in my head. You weren't supposed to change. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how deliberate that sentence was. She wasn't apologizing. She was mourning the loss of the version of me she could manipulate. And it would have ended there, just another poetic wound in a marriage already rusting, if it weren't for the message I received the next morning. It was 7:12 a.m. I was half awake, sipping bad coffee on the edge of our guest bed. Fallon had gone home after the party, not because we argued or anything dramatic. She just understood the weight of what the evening had triggered. She didn't need to stay to prove anything. That alone told me more than any speech ever could. Then my phone buzzed. A name I didn't recognize popped up. Derek T. No photo. Just a number and a message. I assume she finally told you everything. For what it's worth, I didn't mean for it to go this far. My chest tightened. I stared at the screen for a full minute before typing anything. My thumbs hovered, unsure whether to play dumb or go for the throat. In the end, I chose silence. I didn't reply. I forwarded the message to Marcy. Exactly 6 minutes later, she barged into the guest room, hair tangled, panic painted across her face. Lowell, I can explain. I didn't flinch. Derek, that's the guy. Her mouth opened, closed. She sat down on the edge of the bed like her legs couldn't hold her up. It was a mistake. I didn't even ask how long. I didn't need details. The timeline didn't matter anymore. The betrayal wasn't about time. It was about intent. He was my colleague, she mumbled. It started after that fight we had last spring. I thought we were over. I didn't mean to keep it going. It just... Convenient? I finished for her. She didn't deny it. I stood up slowly and walked past her toward the kitchen, needing air, needing clarity, maybe just needing distance. But before I left the room, I said the one thing I knew she wasn't expecting. You don't have to explain it to me anymore. He already did. And in that moment, something in her cracked, because she realized I wasn't asking for the truth. I already had it. Marcy didn't leave the house that weekend. She lingered in the kitchen longer than usual, hovered in the hall when I was on the phone, even knocked on the guest room door with coffee like we were still playing house. I didn't shut her out, but I didn't invite her in either. She could feel the shift, and that terrified her more than any confrontation ever could. Control had slipped through her fingers, and she wasn't used to not holding the script. By Monday, she started spinning a new narrative. She suggested therapy, not because she wanted to fix things, but because it gave her the illusion that she was still directing the outcome. "We can talk about what went wrong," she said gently, eyes wet, voice cracked just enough to sound sincere. "I don't want to lose you, Lowell. I know I messed up, but we're not past saving." What she really meant was, you didn't collapse like I thought you would. Now I need to pull you back before you disappear completely. I didn't agree. I didn't refuse. I let the silence answer for me. And in that silence, she grew desperate. By Tuesday afternoon, I got another text. From Fallon. "Tell me you're free tonight. I think you'll want to hear this in person." I met her at a quiet lounge halfway between her side of the city and mine. She wasn't dressed for drama. No red lipstick, no dramatic coat. Just a gray sweater, black jeans, and a look that told me this wasn't about us anymore. She didn't waste time. I didn't plan to get involved, but I ran into someone, Marcy's coworker. She didn't know who I was, but she talked like someone desperate to vent. I blinked. What did she say? Fallon took a sip of her drink and leaned in. That Derek didn't start it. Marcy did. She initiated the entire thing and then played victim when it got too messy. And, this is the part you need to hear, Marcy told people you knew and were too afraid to leave. The words didn't hit like a punch. They settled in like cold water filling a sinking boat. I should have been shocked. But instead, I just sat there, oddly calm, because somewhere deep down, I had suspected it. Suspected that my silence had been weaponized, rewritten into cowardice. Fallon reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "She doesn't know I got this. but it's a printed email thread between her and Derek. It's not explicit, but it proves intent. I stared at the page in my hands. I wasn't looking for revenge. I didn't even want the drama. But what I held wasn't just evidence. It was the final piece of proof that I'd been erased from my own story, until now. I didn't plan to tell Marcy about the email thread, not immediately. It wasn't about trapping her. It was about watching what she'd do next when the performance wasn't working anymore. And sure enough, by Thursday night, the cracks started showing. She asked if I wanted to get away for the weekend, suggested a cabin rental like old times, tried to pretend like we could patch it all up with flannel blankets and forced laughter. I declined, politely, firmly. The next morning, I found out she had messaged Fallon. I don't know what exactly she wrote, but Fallon sent me a screenshot of a single line Marcy had sent her, full of manufactured civility that practically dripped through the screen. I think it's best for everyone if you step away from this situation. Fallon, being Fallon, didn't argue. She simply replied, "Then meet me. 10 minutes, public place, no drama, just honesty." And somehow, to my surprise, Marcy agreed. Fallon chose a quiet cafe near the river. No crowd, no theatrics. I sat 2 tables away, pretending to scroll through my phone, listening without inserting myself. Fallon didn't even look at me when Marcy arrived. She waited until she sat down, then calmly said, "You wanted me gone." I just want to know why Marcy crossed her legs, eyes darting. "Because this isn't your business. You're not part of this marriage." "You're right," Fallon said. "I'm not. But I saw something you stopped seeing, and I'm not the reason it fell apart." Marcy scoffed. "Are you trying to make me feel guilty?" "No," Fallon said, sipping her tea. "I just want to ask you one thing." Marcy folded her arms. "Fine." And Fallon leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet but sharp. "At what point did you start enjoying the power more than the person?" Marcy blinked, like she'd been slapped by a sentence. Fallon didn't wait for an answer. She stood, nodded once, and walked away. I didn't follow her. I watched Marcy sit alone, face pale, lips pressed tight like she was holding in a scream. That night, she didn't come home, and for the first time in years, I didn't wonder where she was. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering what kind of man waits so long to stop being the background of his own life. But I already knew the answer. I was that man. Until now. The house was quiet when she came back. I heard the keys hit the bowl by the front door, followed by the soft, hesitant shuffle of her heels on the hallway tile, the same sound I used to associate with comfort, with home. Now it was just noise, distant and foreign. She stepped into the kitchen, where I was already sitting at the table. No suitcase, no coat, just her, standing like a student summoned to the principal's office. For the first time, she looked small in this house. She didn't speak first. I did. "There's a letter on the counter," I said. "I wrote it last night." She turned, saw the envelope with her name on it, and stared for a second too long. "Is it... Are you leaving?" I shook my head. "I'm already gone. I just wanted to do it right this time." Her voice cracked. "Lowell, I didn't mean for this to happen. I know I broke things, but we've built a life." "No," I cut in gently. "I built a life. You visited it." She sank into the chair across from me, shoulders curled inward. I didn't enjoy watching her crumble. I didn't need her to suffer. I just needed her to understand, not what she did, but what she cost. "I want you to be happy," I said finally. I just finally realized that I'm allowed to want the same for myself. There was no screaming, no dramatic exit, just a quiet goodbye. She left the house that night, without the letter, without a fight, just silence. And for the first time in years, I slept without waiting for a door to close behind me. Weeks passed. I moved into a small apartment above a bookstore I used to love before I forgot how much I loved anything. I started writing again. Fallon, she stayed a friend. Maybe something more one day, maybe not. But for now, I was learning how to show up for myself before showing up for anyone else. And you know what? For a guy who used to be the quiet one in the background, I'm finally living like I deserve to take up space. If you've ever had to rebuild yourself after betrayal, I hope this story reminded you that it's never too late to choose peace over resentment. You don't need revenge to win. You just need clarity. Let us know in the comments. What's one historical event that changed how you see the world? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories right here on Reddit Confessions.